Hi, I'm Art Berry, also known as Professor Art, and welcome to Rebel Culture. This is part two of my look at censorship, the banning of art and culture, something which we're dealing with in America at the moment. Last episode, I talked specifically about the importance and my own love and many other people's love of American culture, the music, the literature, the art. I even have behind me, you can see a copy of Geek Love, the book by Catherine Dunn that I talked about last episode. I thought I'd just put it there because I love that cover. I love that cover by Chip Kidd. Anyhow, where I want to take it today, and thank you for joining in and riding along with me, is the need to speak out. Often, if we don't feel we have the power to affect change as we see as needed, we don't speak out, right? We just feel, what's the use? Well, no. What I'm going to talk about today is really, really important. I've never seen it this bad. There are always crests and valleys of different political parties, different political leaders with their own bents and so forth. You can go through Britain, you had Margaret Thatcher. You can just go through it all. Yet, there's nothing that's been as destructive, brutally nihilistic, as uneducatedly boorish as what's happening right now with the current Trump administration. And it's only been a short while for the second term, and it's been brutal. So, and we're going to talk about that. You know, all these committed people who have given their lives to art and culture, who have been torn out of their positions, and replaced by people who really shouldn't be there. And what does this all mean? Is this just a storm that's going to blow over? I think what this means is that last episode I talked about how much American culture has meant not only to me, but the rest of the world. And that sense of freedom, experimentation, of being able to be open and celebrational about your creativity is being shut down. I mean, and big time. It's not just on the periphery. This is the political modus operandi. Now, let's just start off by putting up a headline. This is from New Yorker magazine, and from April of this year, and it shows an amazing illustration. Let's look at that first, by a Portuguese artist whose work I admire very much, Cristina Cusero, and it shows President Trump looking menacing, with one eye glaring into the future and peeking out from behind Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture, that specific building. The lettering for the Smithsonian, the word Smithsonian, is in shambles. It's as if a bomb has been detonated and it's just blown apart, which indeed it has. And the caption for the article in the New Yorker is, "At the Smithsonian, Donald Trump takes aim at history. The urge to police the past is hardly the invention of the Trump administration. It is the reflective obsession of autocrats everywhere." Autocrats. I want to look a bit at the idea of words today too, because that's what I'm doing, communicating with you. But let's take the word autocrat. What does that actually mean, right? When you hear that word, well, Cambridge Dictionary, which is always a good place to go to, says that an autocrat is someone who demands that people completely obey whatever they say and do. Now, a couple of things I want to mention before we move on, and that has to do with what I just mentioned: words, 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 words. I'm a word guy. Lecture, I write, I read all the time, and these days I have deep, deep troubled feelings. Actually, I could call it maybe even like a true nausea or anxiety about what's happening. These things I'm mentioning. I mean, like, and how do I express these strong emotions? How do I voice them? Are words going to be enough? Words. What are words? Words are, they're either written as black smudges on a piece of paper that people look at and they decipher them, and then they're understood, or they can be spoken, as I'm doing right now, which is generated from air from my lungs that go up into my vocal folds and vibrate, and I make a sound, and that creates a word. And then you take that sound, and it becomes, shapes an idea or a realization in your mind. Now, it's all kind of abstract, right? It's it's, it's scribbles and bits of wind. That's basically what words are. So I was thinking about this, of course, to do, and I was thinking about this quote from Maya Angelou, the great American writer, who said, "Words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning." All right, that's what I'm going to try to do. So buckle in, because hopefully my words, along with the images I show, will at least partially give a voice to what I'm feeling. I mean, if I often think of songwriters who are able to, find the right words and melodies, and you can, they take you somewhere. And I think a lot of it has to do with what Maya Angelou's talking about, is the human voice as as an emotional tool. Now, I guess here's another quote. I'd like to quote, if we're talking about words, how about a song about words? I mentioned music. Barry Gibb, the Bee Gees, bless him, Barry Gibb, who wrote a song called Words. Why are you quoting the Bee Gees, Art? What's this about? Well, just talking about culture and things. there are things in your own um, personal history, cultural things that are leaf motifs, that are things that are important at a time and place, like your song or something you read and it becomes the book that becomes a kind of guide for you. That's the power of creativity, of culture, of what I'm talking about, and I feel is under threat, like big time under threat. And so I mentioned the Bee Gees. Now let's just take a bit of a dip here because I think little lateral things work. The Bee Gees. This particular album I bought in my teens. It even has my name I wrote on it and a sticker with my address in Ottawa because you take this to parties, right? And you didn't want other people to take them. So it's kind of, there it is. I've got it written on it. This is the Bee Gees First, it's called, with the great Klaus Vormann illustration here, right? So the psychedelic thing happening. And Klaus Vormann, you may remember, um, only shortly before this did the Beatles cover, Revolver, with that pen and ink illustration. Anyway, uh, an amazing graphic artist. He also, I believe, played in Manfred Mann's band, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong on that, but I think he may have. Creativity and the stories that go with it are really the testament of humanity. You go through history, and it's the art and the culture that is celebrated in the museums and the libraries and so forth. And this particular record, which was recorded in 1967, it's called Bee Gees First. Um, when the first single was released, they did it without putting a name on it. They just put a white label. Very conceptual. Before the Beatles did the White Album, too, by the way. But when it came out, their song, New York Mining Disaster, it was played on the radio incessantly because people thought it was the Beatles, right? Clever. Another little point about this, just be with me on this bit of cultural trivia. Uh, there's a great ballad on this album. This album, uh, means a lot to me. I mean, it was one of the, uh, you know, I mean, 1967, right? A long time ago, and I've had it, and I still have it. There's a song on here, a beautiful ballad, and the ballad's called "To Love Somebody," and they weren't going to record it. They actually wrote it for the great uh, rhythm and blues singer Otis Redding. But unfortunately, Otis, they wrote it for him. He passed away in a plane crash at the age of 26 before Otis could record it. So they recorded it. There is another great recording of this, of course, version of it, and that's by Nina Simone, the great um, Nina Simone, who did a wonderful version of "To Love Somebody" by the Bee Gees. And a final little ricochet of cultural stuff. Uh, this book here. All right, Art. Show and tell. You're doing great. Yes. Nina Simone's Gum. It's a book by Warren Ellis, the astounding composer, violinist who worked with Nick Cave. And the story behind this, it's like a religious reliquary. He Nina Simone was Warren Ellis's favorite singer. Just absolutely adored Nina Simone, as we all do, and went to see a performance by Nina Simone. And he noticed that when she sat down at the piano and began to sing, she stuck her gum under the keyboard. And when the show was over, Warren went and he collected that. And this book, which is actually a signed one, I do love the signed editions, is about the his obsession, but his adoration of this gum, which he eventually got cast in gold and silver. Anyway, the world of creativity has got so much, and the longer you live, the more you get to experience it. And I want this to continue, to be able to write a whole book about Nina Simone's gum, to record great psychedelic pop like this that's here for the ages, right? And so that's where I'm taking it. I need to make one more point before I continue and get into the meat of what we're doing today. And that's, it may be bothersome to some people that I'm going on about American culture and politics when I'm not actually an American. And I just want to say, being a Canadian, being in Canada, where we have 8,800 odd kilometers of border, or if you're American, that's 5,500 or so miles. And it's only an hour away from where I am, right? I can drive down to the States, which I'll be doing at the end of this month, actually, going to a concert with my daughter to see the singer Regina Spektor, who is going to be performing at the Seattle Zoo. How good's that? America is by osmosis, part and parcel of being Canadian. Now, yes, of course, I'm inordinately proud of Canadian culture, as I should be. We have Joni Mitchell, we have Neil Young, we have Leonard Cohen, we have Margaret Atwood. Maybe they're not for you either, right? Maybe you want to be critical. Maybe you can't stand Big Yellow Taxi, or you didn't get into reading The Handmaid's Tale. Well, that's fine. It's but those creative things are worldwide. I guess it's fair to say, if you want to be critical, I think that there should be a ban, at worldwide ban, in karaoke's, that nobody can sing Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. I think that would be a good thing. Oh, so many versions of that in bars around the world, earnestly done. But point I'm making here is, let's bring in a great Canadian. Let's bring in one of the best known Canadians, Marshall McLuhan. Marshall McLuhan, the media wizard, the man who had more to say about the age we're living in long before it even happened. And in 1962, Marshall McLuhan made the statement: "The new electronic interdependency recreates the world in the image of a global village." That was in 1962 in his book, The Gutenberg Galaxy, relating to Gutenberg and the first printing of movable type and so forth. Now, if you think about that, the global village, um, we take it for granted with streaming, with everything. I mean, they just had the Glastonbury festival in England, and you could watch it simultaneously through BBC posts on where were the YouTube or wherever. I mean, the world. Whatever is happening, it's immediate. There is this global village, right? Um, of understanding. So what happens in America uh, is global, right? And what I'm doing now, I'm doing these podcasts. I'm putting it up online. Um, Anybody can see it anywhere in the world. So this idea of culture being only a national thing. You certainly can celebrate it, but there's so much more, and in its expansive nature, the global village that he talked about. So I thought I'd show you this. This is interesting. We're doing a lot of show and tell today. Um, my original copies of Marshall McLuhan, right, bought back in the day. Um, Understanding Media, a great read, very thrash, this old copy. And this, I mentioned the Gutenberg Galaxy. Here's my copy of the Gutenberg Galaxy with all its underlines and notations and so forth. When did I buy this? Well, there it is, 1973. I used to, like my albums, I used to write in, because I lent my books often to friends, and so you put your name, but then I would put when I bought 1973, I bought this, right? Well, Tempus Fugit, if we're dealing with words today as we are, let's throw in some Latin. You can always throw in a bit of Latin. It gives a bit of a bit of je ne sais quoi, a bit of yeah, I'm kind of learned. Yeah, I can do Latin. Anyway, uh, Tempus Fugit, time flies. So I think what we're talking about with culture and the importance of culture, I think what McLuhan has talked about with the idea of the global village, about the extension, what would we call it? You know, the way modern technologies connect us worldwide. There's no question. Very important. Marshall McLuhan. What you doing, Marshall McLuhan? Remember that? Oh, I think that was from the old TV show Laugh-In. What you doing, Marshall McLuhan? You know, I began understanding culture at the time when McLuhan was starting his writing. And at that point, technology meant television, radio. There was no internet. There are no cell phones, and there were no. So, um, for me, it was quite amazing. In last episode, I talked about um, watching Elvis Presley on the Ed Sullivan Show. Uh, I found it amazing that I could be watching it. I thought about that. I could be watching that and seeing Elvis perform live, and somebody, in Boise, Idaho, could also be experiencing the same thrill of watching this new cultural entity, Elvis. This interconnectedness, is that a word? Interconnectedness of all things means that I feel totally confident and unabashedly sure when I talk about my own um, love and also my criticism, my take on politics, culture, because we all filter it through who we are, you know. It's not about being right and wrong, it's about your own um, voice of things, right, on things. And I know a couple of coexisting facts, right, things that are happening at the same time right now. One is the historical and cultural value of the Smithsonian as a museum, as a cultural depository. Second part of that coexisting fact is that at this moment, the current Trump administration is attempting to destroy, replace, dismantle that very historical and cultural value. That's what shakes me, right? Pains me, even. I mean, I've spent my whole professional and pleasured life around culture, museums, libraries, art galleries, depots of intelligence and learning, right? Seen by, you know, autocrats as being elitist and so forth, but if, in fact is the places where history is written. And, you know, in Latin, there's another word. Let's throw in another Latin word. Libido scendi. I may have mentioned this before. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's one of my favorites. Libido scendi, which means a lust for knowledge. And the current administration doesn't seem to have a lust for knowledge. It is the opposite. It's not. It's frightening. It's frightening the level of, you know, it's sub mediocrity. Not everybody needs the avant-garde, the more experimental parts of culture, but that filters down. That's something which goes on. It's for the ages, right? And the Smithsonian has a number of different museums, right? All of which are being attacked and defunded at the moment. And think about, you know, the National Museum of African American History. They're really going after, and they're also going after the a museum which is just being formulated, which is the Smithsonian's American Women's History Museum. My God, how frightening that is, right? So all these things would seem so celebrational, so wonderful, just wonderful, right? They're being destroyed willfully. This makes no sense to me. I'm trying to keep it together, but I'm just okay. Let's look at this. If you go to the Smithsonian, and millions of people do in a year, they go to the Smithsonian. What do you see? Well, you see things like Lincoln's top hat, the one he wore the night he was assassinated. You can see that very hat, right? Think of the importance of that. You can see moon rocks. You know, in the 1970s, they brought back you know, pieces of the moon. How astounding! How gripping and otherworldly literally, to see bits of the moon, that we look at every night. Um, Dorothy's red slippers from The Wizard of Oz, right? The 1939 film, Judy Garland. Um, I mean, they are, I mentioned the word reliquary before, sacred objects that are, have a special, people have pilgrimages to go and see them. These are that kind of objects, right? I mean, to go and see the ruby slippers. We're awash with American culture. The Wizard of Oz, the Munchkins, the Flying Monkeys, the Yellow Brick Road. I mean, Elton John isn't American, but he did a whole astounding album called The Yellow Brick Road. Um, this is this is the importance not only of American culture, art and culture, but also of the Smithsonian. We're now going to do a bit of a deep dive into the political side of things, um, because what's happened is the Smithsonian has been uh, deemed anti-American that's the term that's used. In March of this year, Trump came out and accused the Smithsonian of pushing improper ideology. Right? What does this mean? Right? What is the improper? What is the anti-American? It's the actual history that the current administration doesn't like, right? And collectively, they're trying to erase. What is this? What? Well, I think it's quite a blatant and not a mystery when they're uh, specifically targeting the National Museum of African American Culture. This is a racist attack. It's against Black history and culture, the history that gave us, you know, birth to the blues, to jazz, to rock and roll, right? Which, you know, has been so important and so cherished by me and others. But what's happened is that the ideas of, and not the ideas, the history of Black culture in America, which involves the civil rights movement, slavery, Jim Crow. These are seen as, again, a quote from the Trump administration, as something espoused by woke revolutionaries. These are facts, right? And it should be studied. It should be put in context of what happened, whether it be you know the aberrant nature of slavery in America, or uh, waving a flag for people like Louis Armstrong or whomever, right, in Black culture. Um, right at the moment, this is a really, really tears me apart. There are these people who, like myself, have spent their lives uh, not only, researching, writing about, understanding, celebrating culture, right? Art and culture. And these people, because they're expansive, because they're intelligent, because they're not monopic, right? Uh, they're seen as you know not not giving the history that the current administration wants, and they are being forced either to resign or being fired, right? Now, I don't need to go into the whole thing, but I think it's important we realize that uh, the damage is being done to the fabric, the actual, uh, the people, the visionaries, both administrative, curatorial, uh, historically, literary, all of this. It's being decimated. They're being, yanked from positions they've held for, often over a decade or longer, right? So I just have to mention a couple, and I could go on about why these people are important or whatever. But let's just start with, like, education's something I spent my whole life doing, and I believe in the teaching at a university, igniting students with the wonders of thinking and so forth. And James Ryan was for a long while the president of uh, Virginia, University of Virginia, and it was demanded of him and his university that they get rid of the DEI, right? The diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm sure everybody's heard that term. Well, it's kind of it's right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's sort of the holy trinity of Christianity, isn't it? It's like, love your neighbor, uh, you know, em, embrace the meek, for they shall inherit, this sort of thing. No, it's become, there's such a fallacy. There's such a an untruth, and it's expanding. It's like a poisonous fungus that you think it's going to stop there, and it keeps growing and growing. So James Ryan was told to get rid of all the university's courses on, black study or whatever. Of course, he refused to do that. I believe, I'm pretty sure on this, he decided that he would simply change the titles of the course, like James Joyce with Ulysses. When they were banning it, he changed the title on the dust jacket to, I think that was Tales, or Merry Tales for Little Folk, or something like that. James Joyce used. What James Ryan did was give the courses different names. He was, the funding was going to be taken away, all of it, from the university because of that, and he resigned. Others, oh gosh, there's so many. There's a woman called Laura Raikovich, and she was running the Queen's Museum, beautiful place, sort of just outside of central New York, and she was told during the first um, term of Trump that the Republicans wanted to hold an event there, and Mike Pence, the vice president, was going to come and talk. It was very political, and she said, "No, we're a museum. We're not going to be a political convention center." And she eventually had to leave her job. Right? These are people that it's also spurious and perhaps the most noted of these people who have lost their jobs was the director of the National Portrait Gallery, a woman called Kim Sayet. Kim Sayet. And she was the first woman to be the director of the National Portrait Gallery. And she was accused of being, quote, a highly partisan person and a strong supporter of DEI. Yeah. So she lost her job. There are dozens and dozens of these people who have lost their jobs, and this is just within a few months. This is how rampant. This is why I'm doing this rather than, talk. I can talk about, I do talk about the things I love. I talked about the Bee Gees' first album. I love that album. Talked about Geek Love. I love Geek Love. But there's also these things I love are being destroyed. I mean, and it's not false. This is for real. So, what's at the this American museum called the Smithsonian? What's it got? What's so damning, un-American, unpatriotic, woke that it needs to be destroyed? Let's look at just some of the things you gotta love and are totally benign and wondrous. Here's a picture of the Smithsonian American Art Museum, where the art is, right? The SAAM, the SAM. Great museum. Look how glorious that place is. And what does it have? It has works like Edward Hopper. Edward Hopper's Cape Cod Morning from 1950, the artist who dealt with isolation and solitude and Nighthawks to the Diner. Just such his work, right? He's there. George O'Keeffe's Yellow Calla from 1923. Flower paintings. Look out, They could be poisonous. They could be, get rid of those. Or Robert Rauschenberg. They're called combines, and what they were he was working in New York from, I think the decade 54 to 64. I'm being a real historian here, but I think during that decade was the decade where Robert Rauschenberg did his combines. And these were hybrids of painting, sculpture, and his studio mate, Jasper Johns, I think referred to them as painting, playing the game of sculpture. And if you look at this particular work called Reservoir from 1961, you'll see there are two clocks. He put the clocks right in there. One clock, the time is set when he began the work, and the other one was the moment that he finished it. There's a lot of expressionism, but a lot of conceptualism worked in the works of Robert Rauschenberg. Now, on the other side, I put a photo that I took of Robert Rauschenberg when he was here in Vancouver, and I got to spend an afternoon with him. And I mean, talk about a conversationalist, talk about an interesting person. Robert Rauschenberg, we sat and drank Jack Daniels. Yes, we did. And we talked about him buying a goat a stuffed goat at a pawn shop that he used for his famous work Monogram. Put a automobile tire around it. You may have seen that. We talked about him working with John Cage and Merce Cunningham. I mean, just fabulous. And he also had the best laugh, the best, I think, of anybody I've spent time with. He had this this laugh that was just I don't know where it came from, but it was a joyous thing. Anyway, Robert Rauschenberg. Now, also at the Smithsonian is, I think, one of the great works of spiritual, revelatory art, and not only America but the world. And it's a work done by an outsider artist, someone outside of the art world completely. You know, not really a folk artist, but I'll talk a bit about outside art just in a moment. But James Hampton did this work. And the full title, it's a long one, The Throne of the Third Heaven of the Nation's Millennium General Assembly, which he worked on for 14 years or so, 1950 to 1964. He worked as a janitor in Washington, and in 1950 he rented a garage, and in that garage he got ready for the coming of Christ, and he made this glorious, glittery moment of where all the things that he got for free in being a janitor, the bits of foil from cigarette packages, the spent light bulbs, all sorts of things. He manifested these into this throne room, with the throne being in the middle. Now, this is now in the Smithsonian. No one knew this was happening, but after his death, it was discovered. He also was a black artist. I'm sure that he would be yanked from the museum, thinking that the work, it's not about the work's merit, but he's simply a DEI. What an astounding work this is. Here's an image of James Hampton in his garage. And there's no information on this photograph, but you can see he's written on it. So it may be one he set up a camera and took it himself. I'm not sure. But, this astounding work of done in secret, done in the privacy of his own revelations, is all about heaven and hell and redemption and sin and all the things that are part of fusion of Christianity and African American spiritual practices. Here's another image, which I just want to take another one of my little sides and mention outsider art. Outsider art is defined by Jean Buffet. He used the term art brut, which means raw art, but outsider art or art brut is work created from solitude and from pure and authentic creative impulses, where the worries of competition, acclaim, and social promotion do not interfere. Think of the works. There's Watchtowers by Simon Rodia. These incredible, often these people are craftspeople, people who have had a job as tile layers or something. I think that's what Simon Rodia was. That's why he could do all these great mosaic towers that go up in the Watts area of Los Angeles. Or Leonard Knight, who did Salvation Mountain in California. I just put in one other work of an outsider who's become kind of an insider, kind of someone who got championed, right? A man called Howard Finster. Now he died in 2001. This is a painting that was used on the cover of Talking Heads album in 1985. The singing group, David Byrne, Talking Heads, called Little Creatures, and it won the Rolling Stone magazine's album cover of the year. Okay, here's another article or articles dealing with the carnage of culture that's currently underway. And there are two articles, one from March, one from April, on the Trump administration's attack on history and on specifically the Smithsonian that I'm talking about at the moment. One headline reads from the Associated Press: critics see Trump's attacks on the Black Smithsonian, meaning the Museum of African American History. Critics see Trump's attacks on the Black Smithsonian as an effort to sanitize racism in U.S. history. The other article, which is from the Cincinnati Herald, reads: Trump targets Smithsonian's over its portrayal of American history. I mean, this is history. This is what happened. This is, there's things happen in history that have to be understood so it's not repeated, or so that it's put in context with our lives today. And by erasing that is not only untrue, but it takes away the importance of those who struggled for a truth or whatever as well. I mean, it's unbelievable. So here's quotes. This puts it in context. One is a quote from the museum, right? The Smithsonian Museum of African American Culture. The other is a quote from Trump, specifically from him himself, dealing with I know, restoring truth. So I want to read you these two, because this is the what we're up against, right? You have this museum which says its modus operandi, why it's there, is pretty straightforward. The Smithsonian states that the National Museum of African American History and Culture established, quote, a national museum that promotes the richness, diversity, there's that word, diversity and contributions of African American culture throughout our nation and the world. That's it. That's the damning statement right there. The other side we have from March this year, President Trump issued an executive order, putting it in law, saying and it was called Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. I mean, I would think that's probably the most ironic thing I've ever heard, right? For him to come out and say that he has a executive order that is restoring truth and sanity to American history, which asserted, this executive order, that the nation's history has been rewritten as a distorted narrative driven by ideology rather than truth, and been reconstructed as inherently racist, sexist, oppressive, or otherwise irredeemably flawed. Yeah, I'm gobsmacked. This is like what they're claiming is exactly what they're doing. That's the the unabashed irony of it all. Okay, I think what I'll do is I'll stop for this episode. I have so much more that I want to talk about, and I have many notes and thoughts that I've put together, but we can only take so much. You can only eat a couple of chocolate eclairs at once. I think we've done our two chocolate eclairs today. So what I'm going to do is I'll stop this now, and I'll have part three, a part three, continuing on with the Smithsonian. I want to talk about there's so much but hopefully you'll tune in for that. This has been great to share with you some of my thoughts and some of the things I put together. It's, as I say, it's important. It's imperative. It just is. It's history. We're living through a moment that has to be dealt with, has to be digested, has to be confronted, and that's what I'm trying to do in my own little way. Here in my bunker, screaming through the walls to an uncaring world. No, I'm just trying um, to make sense of the nonsensical. It takes a lot of energy to confront rather than to acquiesce, to go, well, what can I do, or whatever. I'm trying to not just kick up dust, but trying to show the damage is being done and the importance of what that damage is about. And I'm going to move on to part three. I'm going to take a break, go have, a couple of espressos, and then I'll come back and move on to part three. So for now, please, as I say, keep the quest alive. It has to be done. It has to be done. And also, until next time, ciao for now.